think we'll just wait a minute to get started. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Heather from the Downtown Alliance. I know some of you may know me. I have just a few technical things before we officially get started. First is that just so you know, this webinar is being recorded, and a link to the video will be sent out tomorrow for everybody who signed up, and we'll also be working on getting this posted to the webpage with the other resources that we have available for you, including the toolkit and the chance for the one-on-one consultations, which I'll touch upon briefly. Regarding Q&A, during the webinar, if you have any questions, you can submit them via the Q&A feature. If you are using a desktop or laptop, this is usually located at the bottom of the screen. And for those of you who are on an iPad, tablet, or phone, you can tap once and it should appear on the top right corner. The chat box is where we'll be sharing with you helpful links, websites, and other detailed information throughout the program. So just a quick overview. The Downtown Alliance is the business improvement district downtown below Chambers Street. This webinar is part of a partnership with the firm Streetsense, which has decades of experience in design and hospitality, as well as research and analysis in various other industries. So we've been working with them closely to help provide you with the toolkits, which we will be kind of going through briefly today, as well as some one-on-one consultations with Streetsense for some of the eligible businesses in the bid. So if you really want that one-on-one kind of individual customized experience to help you with your business as we navigate the pandemic, you can check it out at downtowny.com/streetsense. And so I will turn it over now to Jay and Alex, who will be going through the presentation.
Heather, thank you so much. And hello to everyone who has taken some time out of their day this morning to call in. We really appreciate it. My name is Jay Coldren. I'm the managing director of the Streetsense Hospitality and what we call Eat and Drink division. We do creative consultancy and analysis for restaurants and bars really all over the world. My background is in independent restaurants and in hotel restaurants for the last 30 some years, starting from a mom and pop restaurant on the Jersey Shore up to a Michelin 3-star and kind of everything in between. I'm joined today by our Eat and Drink rock star, Alex Barrow. Alex was a former COO of a fast casual out of Washington, D.C., has 15 years of experience in the business and is an amazing resource for concepting and design and restaurant operations and finance and all of that. So we'll be sharing some information with you today regarding this restaurant and bar toolkit that we've developed for the Downtown Alliance. It's a really tough time right now for restaurants. I don't need to tell anybody on this call. You're living it every day. It's like lifting a piano every day to get people in the door, to deal with all the new regulations, all the different things. And there's a tsunami of information out there in the world to deal with the pandemic. And I know you've been inundated and flooded with tons of information. What we have tried to do with this toolkit is really condense all that. Make it a very, very tight, very lean and very useful collection of information. So what we'll be doing today is we'll be going over the toolkit. We have a self-assessment guide that businesses can go through so they know what they need to look into or what they can skip and really where their business is on the pandemic readiness. We'll talk about managing capital and maximizing revenue in the era of the pandemic. We don't see this going anywhere for the next 6 or 8 months, and the risk is going to go up and down, and restrictions are going to go in and out. But until there's a vaccine, we see, we're all mid-pandemic. And so these strategies are designed specifically to help you bridge that gap and do everything that you can to survive and thrive toward the end of this pandemic. We'll talk about preparing for indoor dining. Sooner or later, the weather's going to get cold. Thankfully, we're allowed to be outside until October, but the weather's going to get cold. You're going to need to go indoors. And how do you do that? What are the specifics? We'll talk about that. Alex will talk about some technology resources and where we are with New York Forward. And then we'll briefly highlight some safety and sanitation requirements, what to do when people get sick, and the legal liability that you need to be aware of as you think about putting your plan and your action plan in place to protect your employees and your customers. So the toolkit. As I mentioned, there was, about 5 months ago, we started really focusing 100% on the pandemic and how to help businesses through the pandemic. And we began sifting through resources from the World Health Organization, OSHA, ADA, all of these resources, and creating a simple, easy to use guide that takes the best thinking from all of these different resources. Then we started talking to operators. We started talking to operators of casual chains, of fine dining area, of local restaurants in Queens and in Brooklyn and in downtown and San Francisco and kind of all over the country. And we were listening to the best ways and the ways that they were approaching this. And we captured a lot of those great ideas into this guide. One of the big things that you're going to have to deal with is funding and capital. So we put some capital management strategies. The Downtown Alliance has a great guide to the available sources of capital for your business. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then we have tech resources. This pandemic has completely changed the way people think about technology and how restaurants should and can use technology to both survive the pandemic and create a better guest experience. And then there's a lot of other resources and things throughout the guide. But the first one, and the one that will really save you a bunch of time, is our self-assessment tool. The Downtown Alliance had asked us, they said, look, these restaurants, they don't have a lot of time. We don't want to waste their time. How do we get it so that they're only looking at, we're providing a really robust resource, but they're only looking at stuff that they need. It would be great if we could just magically skip the stuff that they don't and just focus on what they do. So we created this self-assessment guide. In the toolkit that you're going to be able to download, and you may have already downloaded, there's an assessment at the front of it. And we encourage you to, there's also one online, and we encourage you to fill it out so that you know what you need to look at and what you've got completely covered. If you have a bunch of capital sitting in the bank and you feel like you're completely covered for the next 6-8 months, and you'll be able to survive from a capital perspective, you should skip that section and go into operations. If you're really clear on what to do with safety and sanitation and you've really worked hard on that, but you're looking for capital, then you would skip that section. So the self-assessment guide is really your shortcut to get through this in a way that's efficient and that allows you to really, only look at the meat of what you need to look at, because it's a pretty big guide and there's a lot to get lost in, and we don't want you to get lost. So that's what that's for. So we want to talk initially about managing capital. There's no secret that, with the loss of revenue and the closures and the outside seating only and all the rules, the number one thing you're going to need to survive is additional capital. And so, there are a lot of programs out there. They're tricky to get the money from, but a lot of businesses have. If you haven't yet gone out for an additional capital raise, there are resources and tools and links in the guide of what is still available and things that might fit your business well with very generous repayment schedules or forgiveness. And so if you haven't done that, we have an entire section on managing capital and finding ways to get additional funding for your business. But before you can do that, you really have to understand and forecast your cash flow. In order to do this, you need to have a break-even analysis. And we've created a toolkit for you, or an actual tool that you can download. We can plug in the different components of your business, what you expect your covers to be, what your overhead expenses are, and in general, forecast your cash flow. So a lot of businesses, have been used to just opening the doors, money comes in, you're able to pay the bills, there's a little bit of money to take home, and that's okay. Well, in this environment, in order to survive, you really have to understand, what's my run rate? How much money do I have in the bank? How much money am I losing per week or per day? How much money am I making per week or per day? And then how long can I last with my available capital? So this tool that we put together is very simple to use. It's in, very clear and easy to understand terms. You plug in the specifics of your restaurant, and you can sort of do a little forecasting of, if I'm at 40% of my pre-COVID business, this is what it means for my capital. If I'm at 20%, this is what that means. And so we've created this tool to really help you understand not only what am I losing, what am I making, what's the forecast for my business, but also how much money am I going to need additional to survive through the next 6-7 months until there's a vaccine and things begin to get back to normal. So we have created that tool. We also have, talked about strategies with your landlord. There's a lot of businesses that have had 1 or 2 conversations with their landlord only, and they're not really sure how to approach this. And so we are partly owned by a company named CVRE, which is one of the largest real estate companies in the world. And we've worked with them to say, these are the things that landlords expect you to say to them and expect to hear from you. And here's different ways that the landlord can help you if they're willing. Now, some landlords are just not. We know that. That's an unfortunate situation. But in most cases, we have found that people who own buildings in any part of the world realize that this is an unprecedented event, and they want to have the businesses still there when this is all over. And finding new tenants is a headache and costs them money, and retrofitting a space costs them money. So they're not looking to in many cases, they're not looking to bankrupt any business or to punish a business for this pandemic. They just want to know that they can sort of recover some of things in the back end. So we talk about rent reductions in the near term, free rent with a lease extension, which is something that a lot of businesses are doing. They're saying, look, give us 5, 6, 7 months, and then we'll add that onto the back of our lease. Some landlords have been open to that. Negotiated lease terminations and renewals of leases under different terms is happening as well. And then in the short term, some landlords have been happy to have a percentage of whatever you're making. So they've gone to a percentage rent in the near term with longer term terms on the back end of that. So again, it's important to talk to them, to have the relationship with your landlord, to speak about this. Everybody is in the same boat as you are. So it is, absolutely expected. And we have some guidance in the toolkit. And during our one-on-one sessions, we can talk you through ways to talk to the landlord. So when we think about capital, there are really some very important things that you got to know how to do, and you got to, the steps that you have to take. So how much capital do you have on hand is your first step. Do you have enough? How much do you have in the bank? What's your available credit? What's your available credit lines? And how much money do you have to survive the pandemic and to go moving forward? Looking at it regularly is very important. Understanding the cash flow. I mean, many businesses do this anyway, but some don't. And so really understanding what you have in the bank and what your run rate is and how much you're spending is very, very important. If you need it, secure additional funding. There are resources. There is money still available. The PPP has ended, I think will end September 8th. There's additional resources there. There's additional resources to the government. There's local resources. There's crowdfunding. We've talked about all of that in the kit. Auditing your expenses, getting good at your inventory, getting rid of all non-critical spending. If you have someone that cleans your hoods, maybe you start cleaning your hoods yourselves. If you have other people who do overnight cleaning, maybe you bring that in-house, things like that. So that's important to look at all of your expense categories and not just let things run during the pandemic. And then also protect your staff by taking as much of the labor, and many restaurants outsource a lot of things, but taking that much of that labor in-house and being able to pay your core staff to keep them employed and keep them afloat during the pandemic. Extend the terms with the payment terms with your lenders where appropriate. And then as businesses improve, create a reserve fund so that there are additional restrictions and additional contractions in the market or additional flare-up of the pandemic. You have a little bit of reserve so you can survive that next wave. There may be, we anticipate this being relaxed restrictions and then going back into place and being relaxed and going back into place. Hopefully we'll see us really bend the curve and get control of it. New York has done a great job, but we never know, so you got to be prepared. And then, as we said, we partner with the landlord to reduce your burden. And I'll turn this over to Alex, who's going to talk about ways to really rethink the things that your business is doing. We know that many businesses have already started a lot of these things, but we have talked about ways to make them even more profitable, and different things that you may not have considered that you can do with your business. So I'll turn that over to Alex.
Thanks, Jay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about maximizing your revenue and tailoring those new business approaches to make sure that you're making the most available revenue off of them, as well as generating the most available profit from those different business lines. The reality is the business has changed, and it may have changed irrevocably. So your business model needs to change to adapt. Now is the time to stop, think, and evaluate exactly how you can maximize that revenue so you can optimize your business, not just for today during the COVID pandemic, but to future-proof it and to make sure that as people come back online, as people come back into your business with this new reality, that you're ready to meet them where they are and maximize your available revenue through doing new things. So we've broken it down into a couple of categories. We ask that everybody take a good look and evaluate their revenue mix. Indoor dining at some point will return in the future. It is unknown as to when that's coming back specifically in New York City still, unfortunately. But there are ways to make money within your business that you can take a look at doing things differently, optimizing things to do things better, as well as looking at new revenue streams that you may not have been using before to be able to generate more revenue to make up some of that gap. The first thing we look at is takeout. The second thing we look at is delivery and getting expert at it. The third thing we look at is expanding your offsite catering program. The fourth thing we look at is expanding into the retail segment a little bit and being a retailer of choice for your providers as a restaurant and bar. And the fifth thing that we look at that's really critical and where there's some support from the Downtown Alliance is evaluating your digital strategy, looking at your website, your web presence, and how you're available to consumers online to make sure that you're maximizing your ability to connect to consumers virtually. So we're going to go through a few of those here on the call, on this webinar today. But in the toolkit, there's actually a step-by-step guide as to how to actualize all of these strategies for your business, as well as different options that are available to you to be able to optimize these revenue streams inside your business. So first is takeout and pickup. It's been one of the most successful formats that restaurants have been able to leverage during the pandemic, as people are not eating inside your restaurant, but are coming in to take out and pick up food from your establishment. It's also convenient and allows you minimal contact with the staff to protect them as well as the patrons. And it's really become a go-to strategy. So how do you do it well? First is to make sure that you're online, to make sure that picking up from your restaurant is easy, and to make sure that you own your online channel as well, so that you're not paying somebody else to facilitate your pickup orders where you're doing all the work and you're capturing all the revenue. There are a lot of tools available to do that, but making sure that first and foremost, you have a low-cost strategy for your customers and consumers to order from you that goes directly to you and not through a third party. Second is to think through how your pickup procedures will change so that you can maximize the available revenue to it, whether that's a change in the front of house to make sure that it's easy and convenient for people to pick things up, curbside, front of the store, outside pickup, pick up with a new pickup window where a bar used to be, but also changes to the back of house to make sure that your kitchen is facilitating those orders well so that you can handle the increased volume that's coming from online and takeout in order to still be able to serve your guests as people start to come back either outdoor or indoor when that resumes. Third is to really take a look at your offerings and adjust them. You don't have to offer 90 menu items to have a successful takeout restaurant. Sometimes minimizing things to your best available menu items that are your best sellers, your cost leaders, that have the best revenue for you, that travel well, and are really the best ways to approach structuring a pickup menu so that your offerings are optimized for people to order through takeout, pickup, and also delivery. 4 is looking at your collateral. How is your packaging? Does it make sense to have an increased focus on that, to rethink how you've done takeout before, because before it may have been 10% of the business and now it's 50. It may make more sense to rethink how your collateral packaging bags and everything comes together to represent your brand so that you're offering an elevated experience to your guests when they're not eating in with you. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, is to market that experience. All of those improvements should be marketed. All the times and things you do to improve your offerings, to make it easier for guests to come and pick things up, to make the online ordering experience as good as your in-store experience, market that on all of your channels and talk about it and make sure that consumers know how to engage and interact with you in the most beneficial way to your business to drive them to that low-cost channel to do takeout and pick up well. Second, and similarly, is delivery. There are a lot of options out there for delivery. New York, with some regulation, has reduced some of the fees that you have to pay for third-party providers to provide delivery service for you, the Uber Eats of the world, the DoorDash, all of those third-party services where you're paying a portion of your check to have them deliver the food to your guests. However, there's still a fee. It's still taking into a limited revenue pot, and it's still taking into a limited revenue stream. So we're advocating for two different strategies depending on the nature of your business. If you need the marketing push, that's where third-party operators can be the best. You're on their channels. Somebody ordering from Uber that may not know of you sees you and orders from you, and that's a great new customer that you wouldn't get otherwise. That's a great reason to use a third party. However, you should have available to you multiple platforms if you want to pursue a third-party strategy, or an owned delivery strategy that you can manage. It's a great time to potentially explore managing your own delivery for some or all of your business to make sure that you can keep people employed, as well as have the most and lowest cost delivery service, offsetting that with the service fee to be able to perform that delivery and pay your staff, as well as provide tips to your drivers and or couriers. And then establish the right procedures to put that in place to make sure that you have the wherewithal to be able to manage a small delivery fleet locally and offer something that's lower cost to you and generates more revenue if you're maximizing your revenue streams with those third parties. And third, just like with pickup, is to optimize that experience. Make it easy for people to order from you. Direct links on your website with easy delivery procedures established, and integrating all of your systems to make sure that those orders are going directly to your POS, and it's easy for you to execute those deliveries. Third node we wanted to talk about is catering. And it's expanding your catering program to be something a little bit different than it may have been before. And we think this is going to be one of the first revenue streams that starts to come back, return, and build. As offices slowly and safely get back to work, people begin to return to the city in the capacity that they were interacting with it before. Now's the time to strengthen your offsite menu. Think about how you can do small package offerings for office meetings, small catered events that are offsite, where you're delivering a packaged meal to somebody that's purchasing platters and salads and drinks. So you can solve for people's needs as they come back to work, but may not feel comfortable going out to multiple restaurants over the course of the week, but want something reliable. They want food delivered directly to their office, and a lot of office buildings won't have their normal dining facilities on. So those of you downtown who are servicing larger clients in larger buildings will likely have a leg up on those buildings that don't have their normal employee dining facilities available. So their employees are going to have to look elsewhere for their normal reliable lunch routines. In order to do that, we think solving order input is really critical. You know, a pen and paper and an email confirmation is fine for a few orders a day. But if you're really looking to expand your catering options into a larger offering to do multiple orders at multiple sites with multiple drivers and multiple drop-offs, you need to think through how you interact with the guest, how that guest interaction gets translated to the kitchen, and how that kitchen gets translated back to the guest to be able to execute and facilitate an order input solution. Finally, facilitate those customer relationships. Think about who's still in the city, who's still making those orders on a daily basis, which essential businesses are still open and need to be nourished and need to eat, and establishing a relationship with them first to make sure that you meet them where they are, and you can add some additional revenue lines for people that have to be in work for those days. And that have to come to work, as well as when people come back online, that you're a reliable choice for them so they don't have to venture out to make sure that their lunch is solved on a daily basis. Fourth, we talk about grocery and retail. Restaurants are relatively uniquely poised to provide things that you can't get elsewhere. So pivoting to the grocery and retail business may offer a new revenue line that you've never had before. There are a couple of ways to go about it. Offering lucrative raw product that you have access to and can repackage for consumers. Understanding what your offerings are in store. If you make sauces and salsas that are sometimes sub recipes, maybe selling those might offer an additional revenue stream. Or if you make a signature item that people are after that typically you sell only as an a la carte menu item, making it as something that you can purchase for consumers to cook and heat at home might be an available option as people are coming back online and coming back around, but are still modifying their routines. Again, with all of these, it's about planning the experience and mapping out how your technology is going to work with this. How are people going to order these items, and how does it work with your existing systems? And again, as marketing that new experience and marketing something new that you're offering for your guests. Finally, we wanted to cover digital strategy. The Downtown Alliance has helped us here, where they've offered a partnership available on their website to redo some of the online systems and online websites of restaurants and bars that are eligible. So take a look at that. It's a great program that can help you get a better website stood up quickly. But being honest and evaluating your website design and thinking through whether now's the time to adjust your website to make sure that you're marketing your best foot forward to your customers. There are also some simple things you can do that don't require any overhead, that don't require much of a lift or a great understanding of technology. And that's just making sure you own your Google listing, looking through your Yelp reviews, making sure you're well represented there, understanding what your digital presence is and how your business listings look to the consumer, and making sure that they're optimized to the ability that you can control them. And finally, making sure that your business is well represented online by having the best-in-class photography and collateral to make sure that all of your websites and assets reflect who you are and who you want to be when customers are in your store, as well as they do online. So in looking at some of the things that we need to do, there's a lot that we just threw at you, and a lot of this is in the toolkit in a much more step-by-step manner with links and resources on examples and ways to do this well. But it's about getting creative. Get creative about what revenue streams and be willing to adapt to things that you may not have done before or don't quite know how to do well now. Seek out tools to make sure that you can do that. Treat your business like a startup and optimize your ordering and optimize your online ordering, pickup, and delivery. Owning your own channels is the best way to protect your revenue. That means owning at the bare minimum a to-go strategy where people can order to you directly and go directly to your POS. Improving your online menus so they're optimized for both cost as well as offerings, and so it's not so complicated to execute on the day-to-day. And evaluating your online presence, your website, and creating a strategy to engage with your guests in a digital manner through social media, through Instagram, through your website, through email marketing, and thinking about how you can reach your guests that aren't coming in the door every day. So with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Jay to talk about how indoor dining may come back online and how things are going to look when indoor dining is ultimately allowed by New York City again.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. You know, the Bento Box partnership that Downtown Alliance has done to create a low-cost website is really, really great. If you don't have a really, highly visual or solid website that has links to all of the social channels and your online ordering, et cetera, Bento Box is a really great solution for that. And it is very low cost, and it is, it's kind of exactly what small restaurants need to have a very effective online presence. So we can't stress that enough. And, one thing that Alex said a little earlier that I wanted to reiterate is, looking after your online reviews, it's really important. 1-star increase on Yelp is a lot of money in the bank for you, a lot more visitors, a lot more revenue, a lot more people trying your business. So going from a 3 to a 4 or a 2.5 to a 3.5 is really meaningful from a revenue perspective. So keep that in mind. But sooner or later, we're going to get into indoor dining, and I think that as the cold weather comes online and the pressure mounts, businesses are going to have to respond in ways that are safe for their guests and ways that are safe for the community and for the staff. And so there are a lot of models out there in the world, from the hyper stringent models in a lot of different municipalities on the East Coast, to what's going on in California, to what's happening in Texas and Florida. And so what we've done is we've created a guide for what we feel are the most responsible, effective models for really rethinking and rebooting indoor dining, and models that do follow the New York Forward guidelines and the CDC directives, and that we feel that are really where it's going to wind up when I think these municipalities are forced to deal with the reopening of the indoor dining. So there's a lot of things you have to do. There is going to be a significant reduction in density, but with some social barriers and some social distancing technologies, things like plexiglass, barriers on banquettes and freestanding plexiglass, or we've even seen restaurants sort of drop clear plastic on sheeting between tables. Those things are going to allow you to have more capacity than less. So without those, the tables have to go really far apart, 6 feet between chair to chair and things like that. So you really, really do reduce your capacity in a way that may be crippling to your business without outdoor dining. So what you see on the right here is, some work that we did in Queens, where we took a very tiny restaurant. We were able to get 3 seats outside, three deuces outside, a number of 4 tops, and then we put together a little plan. You'll see the items in red are social distancing barriers that had to be purchased, but they will allow these tables to be at this distance and allow them to maintain some of their capacity with a very clear guest flow back and forth. Now, this is a very simple example, but restaurants need to get good at this and need to be thinking through this. So we've created a guide for you. And so we have everything from, what to do with your bar to, how to think about partitions, to how to think about service pathways. There's, going to the restrooms are tricky now. Sometimes, people need to be escorted or told that the restrooms are free. People are installing lights that say that there's a free stall available or the restrooms are free. And, being very careful about that and, having all the technology there and all the things that you need to have there is a very specific task. So also a part of this is eliminating service stations and, waiting areas, repurposing service stations, eliminating waiting areas, and then really thinking about your guest flow in a way that makes everybody feel comfortable. So what you'll see in the guide when you download it are really specific examples of what to do with the communal table. When tables are at a diagonal, how far do they have to be apart? What do you do when you're on a banquette? What do you do with the 4-top? What do you do at booths? And again, with the right thinking and the right thought process behind this, the capacity can be workable, we feel, with indoor dining. And I think that the municipalities will get there as well. Other things that we cover in this are things like what to do at a bar if you want to reopen your bar, how to transition some of your bar space into dining space, all of those different specifics about indoor dining. And we've covered them in a very visual and easy to understand way in the toolkit. How do you service? This is tricky. I mean, the world of restaurants is a very interactive, very high touch, a very interpersonal business. And that may not be welcome from your guests as they come out of this pandemic. People are scared, they're worried, as you know. And when they begin to come inside, there's going to be a bit of a dance of how do I show that we're going to keep you safe? How do I make sure that we have put all the things in place that keep the guests safe, the staff safe, the kitchen safe? And there's a lot to really think about in this era of social distancing. So, creating service models with less table touches, with pre-ordering or mobile ordering, which is something a lot of restaurants are doing, where you have the order before you walk in. Eliminating the self-service things like buffets or self-service beverage, soda guns and things like that. Dude, eliminating all that self-service is something that people are probably going to expect coming out of this pandemic. Covering or wrapping cutlery, doing cashless payments or tableside payments, tableside credit card processing, asking if people want a receipt sent to them rather than handing somebody a piece of paper that could be potentially contaminated. All of these things are covered in the toolkit, and really thinking about what is a post-COVID mindset and how do we become anticipatory, hospitality professionals that allow our guests to feel comfortable and really protect our staff. So a lot of that's covered in this, and really what does service mean in the era of social distancing is a very important question, and each business is going to be slightly different. As we think about the section, there's a lot of things to do, as we mentioned, and we have a step-by-step checklist at the end of this chapter of things that you have to do to get your business ready for indoor dining, and really to come up with a service model that is appropriate for a mid-pandemic consumer, and really does make people feel comfortable. I want to talk a little bit about, some people talk about safety and sanitation at the end, but I want to talk a little bit about what a lot of restaurants are doing and a lot of businesses are doing to make people feel comfortable. There's a term out there called sanitation theater, and I think it has been misconstrued in some examples where it's not just pretending to clean. It's actually cleaning, but being very overt about it. And we are proponents of this. I went to a doctor's office the other day and they wiped everything down, and they wiped the handles, they wiped the door, they wiped the glass between the receptionist and the patients. And I asked the doctor, I said, does that really help? And they said, we don't know, but it makes people feel good, and we're in the business of making people feel good. And I think that's the lesson to take away when you think about preparing for indoor dining. You're going to have to do a lot of these things to make people feel comfortable and feel comfortable using your business. And I'm going to turn it over to Alex to talk a little bit about the tech resources that are available out there in this new world.
Great. Yeah, there's a lot to cover here. So I'll be relatively brief in talking about some of the resources that are available. Again, we highly recommend you download the guide. This section in particular has a number of links to all the best-in-class technology resources. And an extra bonus for this is that a lot of these resources are trying to become the best in class, and they're offering all kinds of promotional deals for people to sign up for their services for free or for a very reduced rate to try out new things in their restaurant as they begin to adapt and grow, so that they can grow and be someone who answers to the future of the restaurant business. As we know, these mandated social distancing requirements have really accelerated the need for some of these technologies to exist and exist well. And it's always hard to interrupt a well-oiled machine. So looking at ways to make smart interventions with technology can help you prepare your business to be more successful both during the pandemic and then after the pandemic, to make sure that you're meeting your consumers where you need. The first thing we highlight is waitlist apps. Reservations have really changed. People can't be waiting and congregating in common areas. You can't just send somebody to the bar to wait for a table while they take their seat. So taking a look at how to use waitlist apps to make sure that you can queue up your waitlist and ordering conveniently is a really good way to make sure that you can meet this pandemic where it is, as well as change the nature of your business and how you're doing waitlisting. Integrating online ordering is something I'm a big proponent of. There are quite a few resources out there that take away a lot of the stress that online ordering creates for your kitchen and for your expo. And instead of having 8 different tablets from 5 different service providers, as well as your kitchen printer, all going off at different rates with different things, and having to put all that together at the end of the day just to collect your revenue, looking at systems that can help you integrate all of those things together simply, funnel everything through your POS, and make it a more simple and seamless experience, both for you and for your guests to be able to order online, which is critical right now. We look at some technologies that enhance the curbside delivery service. We make it so that it's easier to do so, as well as some marketplaces where that's an attractive offering. Self-ordering has been a big push during this pandemic, especially in models that allow it. Some of the fast casual segment has been moving there already, with self-ordering kiosks being a relatively new technology that's been helping businesses manage their labor, as well as keep efficient processes in their own kitchens. And it's something that's expanding to more parts of the business so that guests can order themselves and not have to interact with somebody, and it can be a more seamless experience for a guest without having to have so many touches in that low touch model. Another thing we're seeing a lot of is tableside payment, which is de rigueur in European restaurants, where they come to your table and you can pay right there. But it's something of a low adoption here in the US, except for the past 3 or 4 years, where that guest can pay directly at their table with their check presenter given right to them as a piece to pay, or one better, pay directly on their phone to be able to do tableside payment seamlessly, so that there's no interaction required. One that we're a big proponent of is QR technology. It allows guests to interact with you, and you can point them to the right interaction point. You can do things like put a QR code on your door to direct them to your online and curbside pickup ordering service. You can put a code on each table so they can go directly to a menu, potentially even order through your restaurant, or that you can put one up on your website so that it's easy to interact with consumers where they are, to use QR codes to make sure that you can pay, process payments, process orders, and make that experience seamless for the guests so that they can access your menu. You don't have to give them one. Catering software is a big one that we've added. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, pen and paper works for keeping track of a few orders a day, or Excel spreadsheet or QuickBooks or some simple systems that are free and easy to start up for creating invoices and creating quotes. But when you want to have a more robust catering offering, oftentimes it requires more robust catering technology. We've highlighted some of the best-in-class catering services out there that allow you to, one, get on catering marketplaces, which can expose you to new customers, and two, optimize your catering workflow so that your sales reps or your restaurant managers can sell and input orders that go directly to your kitchen that then go directly to the guest, and then become a more seamless experience that you can scale up and leverage that economy of scale when you're making more items for more people in less time. A big proponent that we have been a fan of in optimizing business is looking at cloud-based POSs that make online ordering simple, easy, and native. There's some really, really high quality POS systems out there. It's always difficult to convert to a new POS, but some great introductory offers out there now. We're not associated with any of these companies, but we do recommend a few in the guide that we think have done this really well, that provide really good resources for their clients, and that are just easy to use to get up and working online in an optimal fashion. As we mentioned, website software. We recommend some other options as well as Bento Box, but we wanted to highlight that partnership with the Downtown Alliance as well. And Bento Box specializes in restaurants. They take your menu, they take your photography, they take your logo, collateral, and branding. They make a website for you that at a relatively low cost, or in this case, sponsored by the Downtown Alliance, as well as an ordering interface that's easy to use for both the guest and for your restaurant, so that you can, from day one, have an attractive website that's easy to integrate other options into, and have an online ordering system that works for you on day one. Multi-channel third party. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but what that means is an app that allows you to publish your menu and push it to multiple service providers at once. Right now, some of you guys may be using Uber Eats, DoorDash, other service, Caviar, other services all at once. And anytime you need to make a change or an edit to your menu, you're logging into 5, 6, 7, 8 different systems to make sure that your menu is up to date every day. Third party can take all the work out of that for you through a multi-channel platform. And there are a couple of good ones out there that make it really simple to go omni-channel and simple to push to as many or as few services as you want to, as well as manage those orders in one centralized place. So you don't have to look for and ask the guest, well, where did you order from when you're troubleshooting an order, or to know which orders are where, and have a single unified dashboard that allows you to manage all those online orders at once. Inventory management. It's not a revenue building strategy per se, but in going back to capital management and understanding how to reduce your expenses and protect all available capital and revenue now, inventory management is key and critical. And there's some really good systems. We put some in there that are easy to use and start up in a day or two. And we put some in there that are going to be with you for the long term if you need them, to be able to improve and make sure that you're running your food costs to an expert level, and can really, really expertly manage your restaurant's numbers on a day-to-day basis to keep a closer eye on how your business is performing from day to day. Lastly, reservation systems. And again, we don't represent any of these companies, but we do know of a few that happen to be doing introductory deals that are free for the rest of the year, free through 2021. So we wanted to remind you to take a look at those, as well as when indoor dining comes back, to remind you to take a look at whatever one you're using currently and make sure that it's socially distanced, it's optimized for what you're doing now today, and it's flexible enough to work with you as you have to be flexible with your business. So taking a look at those reservation systems to see if that can increase both your reach as to who you're reaching and how you're handling reservations now, but also how you're managing that day to day with your table service, and it's something that works for you and for your business. So as we said, we really think now's the time to do this. It makes a lot of sense to look at those new business opportunities together with the technologies that are required to do them. Again, looking at waitlisting and paging to see if that works for you and for your business. Making sure that you explore these technologies. If it's something you want to do, we have the resources. Or if you don't quite know where to start, we outline some examples of how they're used, as well as some best-in-class technologies that you can reach out to and see if it's something you're interested in adding to your business portfolio. And be really, really critical of your web presence. So taking a look at your website, making sure you have the tools to manage it, and making sure you have the tools to make sure that it's representing your brand well, and reviewing all of those technology pieces to make sure that if you're adding new revenue streams, trying to optimize revenue streams that already exist, or just growing your business in general, that you have the right technology to make it easy, seamless, and make the guest experience online or digitally as good as it is before the pandemic, when they were coming into your store every day. So we also wanted to touch a little bit on some of these New York Forward guidelines and what's going on out there, what we know, and most importantly in the toolkit to make sure all of your bases are covered, to make sure that you are compliant with the New York Forward plan and understand it inside and out, so that when and if there is ever an inspection, a violation, or a citation, that you have the tools you need to handle that. As we know, it's been an industry by industry approach where restaurants and bars have unfortunately been skipped. As of today, there's no return date set. De Blasio gave a press conference yesterday and did not announce a return date of yet. We give you some resources of where to monitor for information for that in the toolkit. But we wanted to go over just some very core basics, and again, provide resources for you to understand what those guidelines will be when they come, as well as making sure you're current and understanding what the guidelines are now, if there's ever an issue or a misunderstanding in the outdoor dining guidelines from the city or the state, as well as understanding what's coming next with that indoor dining guidelines. So as we said, until further notice, there's no indoor dining. And we outlined a few things that the city has recommended that people implement to be able to bring that back, as well as the guidelines on indoor and outdoor dining that are available online for both New York City and New York State. We link to those so you can look through them and understand them, as well as unpack them a little bit more in the toolkit. So one thing that we've seen a lot of people miss is the site reopening plan. You may have already done one. You should have already done one if you're open and operating now. But if you don't have one on hand, it's gonna become an issue if you ever get an inspection or a citation. You have to have a site reopening plan to make sure that you've outlined. There's a simple template to use. You outline your interventions that you've taken, the safety measures that you're following, and affirm that you are understanding the New York Forward rules. You have to have that on site, on premises, should you have an inspection in any way. So we hopefully walk through that process and make it as painless as possible to either get yours up to date if you've lost it, if you didn't fill one out in the first place, or to get one started right away, so to make sure that when somebody comes by to inspect either your outdoor, your indoor, or any of your other business facilities, that you're ready to be compliant with that New York Forward plan. So a few things that we've seen come up, as well as some additional guidelines as we're in this interim phase of outdoor dining, and links as well if you want to understand these better or ever contest anything that you need to contest, or understand what you're able to do and what you're not able to do with your available licenses and permits, is understanding the Open Streets program, understanding the Open Restaurants program, and how you can extend that dining to the maximum ability to the outdoor store frontage. As well as understanding the SLA guidelines with how that relates to your liquor license for takeout, delivery, and outdoor consumptions, and all of the direct links to those, so you can understand them and have them ready to go if you ever should have to have a citation, inspection, or have any concerns or questions about whether you're compliant with the New York Forward guidelines. So as we said, we highly recommend that you guys always brush up on those, read them, make sure you understand the outdoor dining ones. Look now at the indoor dining guidelines that are available, because it may be back of mind. So when that comes back, you're ready. Fill out and post that site reopening plan so you're ready for anything and everything that comes your way. Apply for any requisite permits should you need one for any sort of extension, as well as extension into outdoor that you want to take a look at and continuing into October. And then of course, monitor for the resumption of the indoor dining timeline as news becomes available. So it's not the time to skirt around rules right now and try to get away with what you can get away with. So just really making sure you're brushed up on that allows you to make sure that you're optimizing your business for the regulation environment that exists now.
Great. Well, we threw a lot at you, and we have a few minutes left here. I am not going to go over in detail safety and sanitation regulations, but we did want to highlight that the New York Forward Plan is really, a good starting point for this, but it's relatively vague on some of the specifics. And a lot of businesses need the specifics of what to do when when someone gets sick. That's a really important process. What to do with contact traces, what to do when you have an infected employee with, who they've been in close contact with, how do you talk to them, what do you say? All of that specifics is in the guide, as well as, what should you be expecting from workplace cleanliness? And, restaurants do this stuff great anyway. Sanitation is a big part of what we do every day. extending that to the front of the house and adding not just cleaning but disinfecting as a thing that you do on a day-to-day basis and are really diligent about it is really important. But there's a lot of specifics that may be not clear and not really covered in the New York Forward guidelines. So we've taken the World Health Organization, the CDC, and OSHA, and all those, and we've put it into a very sort of easy to read, simple way of thinking about safety and sanitation, and we've collapsed it into this guide for you. The other thing that we talk about in this section is if you have a pretty large staff, and how do you keep it so that if someone is infected, it doesn't shut down your entire restaurant. So we talk about A shifts and B shifts, and having people that don't cross-pollinate with the A shift. They come in. So if someone on the A shift gets ill and there's a bunch of people in close contact with them, you can have, clean the restaurant up as quickly as you can, sanitize it, disinfect it, have the A shift people self-quarantine until they know they don't have it, and then focus on the B shift and run your business with the B shift. That way there's no interruption in service, no interruption of your business. So things like that and the safety and sanitation are in there. There's a lot of detail. We don't want to go into it on this call because we want to be able to answer a couple of questions. But at the end of the day, the self-assessment tool that we started with is really a great thing to spend 10 minutes doing it. Where you need focus and where you're curious about, go through the guide and look at those pieces. I know that there's still some availability for one-on-one consulting sessions just to talk through what you're thinking, strategies, where you are, needs, questions, and there's still some available through the Downtown Alliance. And there's a lot of resources in this guide. We put it together for businesses and for restaurants, and we know how busy you are. We know how difficult the environment is. We wanted to make it as easy and accessible as possible, but pack it with a lot of great stuff. So we're super happy and super delighted to be able to share this with you. Our heart goes out to you and your staff and all of the people in across the country in the industry that have suffered through this pandemic. It is something unlike anything we've ever seen before. But we know that coming out of this, we'll come out of it stronger. That dining and restaurants are the lifeblood of any city, and certainly New York. It's the lifeblood of New York and what New York means to anyone who visits or lives there. So we think there's a lot of great stuff here, and we're delighted to be able to share it with you. So we'll sort of see if Heather has any questions that have come through, and see where we can go from there. Heather?
Thank you, Jay and Alex. That was a great presentation. We don't have any questions in the chat right now, but if you have any questions, feel free to email me at hdusharm@downtowny.com. And I put the link in the chat box as well for the self-assessment and toolkits that you can check out that are available on our website, as well as the link in that page also goes to the one-on-one consultations to get that individualized experience. So we look forward to working with everyone. And of course, if anybody has questions for the team, you can feel free to email me. So thank you so much, Jay and Alex. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Heather, and thank you to the Downtown Alliance. We really appreciate the opportunity. We look forward to working with your businesses.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really look forward to talking with you guys one-on-one to walk you through how to apply these to your business. So look forward for that, and we'll see you soon.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks all.